Good evening. If you would, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jesse, would you do the roll call, please?
Chair Welty,
Here.
Vice Chair Jandro,
Here.
Melissa Toe, and she will have an unexcused absence for the record. Member Marshall,
Here.
Member Hartwick,
Here.
and Member Douglas, she has an excused absence. I received notice of her absence this evening. Member Gilmer,
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum, and all 5 members will be voting members this evening.
Thank you, sir. I trust all the people who arrived promptly and on time have read the minutes of the past meeting, and the chair would hear a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the minutes of last meeting as written.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded, and we accept the minutes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the like sign. Motion carries 5-0.
and Chair Welty, if I may, I just want to clarify that that motion was made by Member Jandro. Okay. I'm sorry, with the mask on, it's hard to tell, so I just want to note that for the record. And it was seconded by
Mr. Hartwick.
Mr. Hartwick.
That's correct.
Anybody have anything under the new business items on the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay, then, if we could, let us move to public hearing case number BOA21-00004, Mr. Car Wash, appeal for a variance. Do we have someone representing and presenting for the city of St. Cloud? Would you please state your name and your position, sir?
Good evening, board members. My name is Jesse Anderson. I'm the senior planner for the city of St. Cloud.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jess.
All right, so as you see before you, this is the Board of Adjustment case for a variance request for Mr. Car Wash. It is a request of a waiver from the front setback requirements for an accessory structure in order to construct a canopy, support columns, and pay stations. For the background, the future land use is commercial, the zoning is highway business, and the site is listed by the Osceola County Appraiser to be on a 1.56 acre lot with approximate dimensions of 200 feet wide and 375 feet deep. In particular, the applicant is requesting a variance from the Land Development Code, Article 3, Zoning Regulations, Table 3-6, Commercial and Industrial Requirements, specifically for the Highway Business District. Specifically in this case, it's for the front setback, where they're looking to locate canopies, support columns, and pay stations within the front setback. In particular, again, the front setback for the accessory structures is required at 25 feet. The proposed setback is going to be 11 feet, resulting in a 14-foot variance. This map in front of you indicates the future land use of the surrounding parcels as well as the parcel in question. And this map denotes the overall zoning districts for the surrounding parcels as well as the parcel in question. In front of you is the proposed site plan for the overall site. In the top portion of this, you can see the canopy columns, which will be a little bit more visible in the next slide. As you can see, they do encroach into the front setback off of Neptune Road, which again was supposed to be required at 25 feet, but is being proposed at 11 feet for that 14-foot variance. Staff for this project, or this overall case, does recommend denial of the BOA variance request for Mr. Car Wash. Based on the applicant's responses, staff believes that the request does not satisfy the 6 criteria described in section 3.4.2 D1 of the LDC, Specifically, the request does not appear to satisfy criteria F, which states that the proposed variance must be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the associated zoning regulations and must not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. Specifically, staff is concerned of potential stacking issues, which is in conflict with N.4 of the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. The element states that access shall be designated to facilitate the movement of vehicles off the highway to prevent queuing of all vehicles on the traveled way, and there is concern over the stacking that may result onto Neptune Road. For this overall case, the legal authority for the Board of Adjustment is that the Board of Adjustment shall make findings that the requirements of the sections 3.4.2.d.1 A through F have or have not been demonstrated by the applicant. The Board of Adjustment may approve this application, approve with certain conditions or safeguards, or deny this application. Staff is here for any questions, and the applicant would like to present a couple slides themselves.
Anyone have any questions of Jason before he leaves the rostrum? Okay, and the applicants are here, I presume, the gentleman so distinguished. And their speaker. Are you the speaker for the applicant, sir?
This
The existing one was in the report.
we could put it on that over there if that's okay. Is that okay, Jesse?
Yes.
Anyone from the applicant's side who wishes to speak? Have you already filled out a yellow card from Jesse?
No, sir.
You've already done so?
Yeah, the applicant can simply identify themselves, Mr. Chairman. And
Right, when they
state-
come up to the rostrum. I'm going to wait till Jess and see if she... Thank you for being patient, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, if you can just state your name and your relationship to the
Acceptable to remove
applicant.
my mask?
Yes, sir.
Is it okay to remove mine so you can hear me better?
Are you representing the applicant?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Stuart Anderson. I'm an engineer with Interplan. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Car Wash. We submitted the application for this variance. I'd like to talk about the project a little bit and specifically the existing conditions versus the proposed conditions to address the stacking concerns that staff has. If you'll notice on the site plan that's up here now, this is how the site is set up right now. This is how the car wash facility works. You'll notice the pay stations are not very far from the entrance to the tunnel. You can only stack 2, at most 3 cars between the tunnel and the pay stations. So we feel that moving the pay stations back is actually going to increase the speed and the efficiency of the car wash. These days, they have more members than they do people who actually pay at the pay stations. They pay ahead of time. They have a monthly membership. They go through these pay stations more like a toll booth than they do actually pushing the buttons. So the majority of their members majority of their customers are members. So they fly right through these pay stations. Mr. Car Wash finds that the stacking between the tunnel and the pay station is more of a detriment than having stacking at the pay stations themselves. So even though we've moved the pay stations around the corner and closer to the entrance off of Neptune Road, we feel that this will still work more efficiently. It'll move faster than it does in the current conditions. I'd also like to point out there's another driveway to the south on Old Canoe Creek Road. So not all the traffic is coming from Neptune Road. There will be some stacking potentially coming from the south up to Old Canoe Creek, or from Old Canoe Creek Road. So not all the stacking is going to be out onto Neptune, which I'm assuming is where the concern is from staff. Let's see. I'd also like to point out there's attendance at the pay stations. There's they have tablets. They're there to move people through the pay stations faster than doing it themselves. The new pay stations that we're putting in are more advanced. We're replacing the old ones. They're getting rid of them. They're putting new pay stations in there that are more efficient. They're user-friendly. They move faster. So even the people who are ordering or paying at the pay station itself should move faster than what they're experiencing today. So combined with the membership and the more advanced technology, we feel that the stacking at the tunnel is more important than stacking at the pay station itself. So with that, I think I've touched on the main elements of our response to the traffic concerns, the stacking concerns. We have some gentlemen here from Mr. Car Wash who actually work there and can explain some of the technology a little bit better and about how the operations work. But the ultimate argument that we have is that we feel this is a better situation than what we have today, that the stacking at the tunnel is going to slow things down more than the stacking at the pay stations.
Before this gentleman leaves, does anyone up here have any questions of him?
Could you point out,
Go ahead. Go
I'm gonna
ahead.
put up the new-
could you point out on the map here where the existing stations and where the proposed stations are gonna be? Mine's kind of blurry.
We're gonna, first, before we get there, Jay, is there a possibility we can get a hand microphone down here so that the applicant can be heard on mic as he's responding to, you got, okay? Check that.
Testing.
It's on?
Testing?
Yep.
There we go.
I go. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Harwood.
I was just wanted somebody to point out on this drawing where the current pay stations are and the proposed. I can't read it.
Yeah, this is the existing site plan. So right now, the pay stations are right here. There's 3 of them lined up right here. And between here and the tunnel, this is the entrance to the tunnel. And actually, it kind of starts a little bit at the beginning. There's an overhang. You only have room for about 2 more cars. So if all 3 cars pay at the same time and pull through there, it's going to back up almost immediately. So with the members coming through using the RFID, like it's like your E-Pass,
Right.
they don't even stop. They stop long enough just for the bar to come up and let them through. So that's where they are right now. And then we're actually moving them around the corner. If I could flip back to the, well, I can do it here. So you'll see with the new plan, we're pushing them back over here, around the corner. So it gives us a lot more stacking from the tunnel to the pay stations. And we can still get 3 cars at each menu board before we even get to the entrance over here. So there's room for 9 cars to stack there. And that's if there's people actually at the pay stations taking their time. But it's my understanding 2 of these lanes are going to be member-only lanes anyway, and most of them are going to be free-flowing and not back up at all. So, like I said, we can get to the operations people, and they can explain it a little bit better than I can.
So the new variant that is in that space to the right, that's the 11 foot?
The 11-foot buffer is on the north over here,
Okay.
because we're putting a canopy over all 3 stations. Instead of having individual canopies on each menu board, it'll be a bigger one, so that way the attendants that are out there can be protected and be covered and walk between the stations, instead of just doing an individual canopy at each menu board. So that canopy is going to encroach into the building setback, because there's a 25-foot setback off Neptune Road. Which is actually, I'm not sure why Neptune originally was declared the front setback anyway. It's really a 2 setback road, and you'll notice the building is only about 10 feet or so off of Old Canoe Creek Road. So we're not getting any close to the road on Neptune Road than we are on Old Canoe Creek Road. But it happens to be labeled as the front setback as the 25-foot setback.
Any other questions from?
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. As far as the cars going through the car wash itself, have you all changed the speed of that car wash versus the prior owner?
Yes, they can address that, but I believe that there's new equipment, new chains. The speed that they move is faster than the old car wash, than when Mr. Car Wash bought it from a previous vendor, and they've upgraded all their equipment inside the tunnel.
Because the problem always was not at the queue going into the wash, it was getting there, period. I mean, it only could take so many cars, so there's a lot of cars that were always sitting behind the pay station, waiting their turn, and even as you paid, you had to go in. And you're saying that
That,
You're gonna
that's,
change it to two,
that's the concern now, that the stacking between the pay stations here and the tunnel is too short. That gets congested and people can't even pay. At least by backing them up, people could be paying here and then they can stack after paying while getting into the tunnel. So there's more stacking between the pay stations and the tunnel than in the current condition.
okay, but if they sped up the car wash, why are cars sitting in the queue waiting to go into the car wash after paying? They should be going faster.
They are going faster, but it's still a bottleneck because it's too close to the tunnel.
And if I understood you correctly, 3 of those lanes, you want to make annual pass holders, whatever you want to call it, and 1 lane will be for the people that don't want to do that, the monthly pay.
That's the intent, that's how they'll be labeled, although I believe anybody can use any lane at any time. So they still have the pay stations there, but they're encouraging the attendant to be at the 1 lane, and that's what they want most people to go through who are paying at the pay station. And then the members can go through the speed lanes. But the point is, we feel there's gonna be a lot more stacking at the tunnel itself after the pay station and not before the pay station.
You know, it may be seasonal, but I know the concern is the backup on Neptune Road, which is a definite concern at different times during the year. And I don't see how moving those pay stations back changes anything, especially if 1 or 2 of them, right now it's only 1, where somebody just wants to come and wash during love bug season, they're gonna be out because it's too short. They're gonna be out on Neptune Road. It's a problem now. It has been a problem. Not since y'all come in, because there hasn't been that much business from what I can see. I go by here 3-4 times a day. And what you're doing is you're taking the queuing space away from where you want to queue them to wait to pay, and could ultimately put them back on Neptune Road.
I feel like that's a result of the current operations, that the backup at the tunnel, people can't even pay. They can't even get to the pay station. And so if they can't even pay, they can't even get going into the tunnel, and it backs up further. By having more stacking here, they get through the pay station, and then there's a lot more room. The people that are going quickly through the pay station can stack up and then get into the tunnel. So the overall stacking has not really changed that much. It's just by moving the pay station back, we think it'll speed up the tunnel itself.
You're just moving the larger queue to waiting to go in, and the smaller queue to pay. So what does that really change? You still have the same number of cars in the queue, the same number of cars trying to get in, and they go out Neptune Road.
It's to satisfy the members, the ones who want to get in quickly and get out quickly. Now they can get through the lane quicker, and they won't be waiting at the pay station. They'll just have to wait at the tunnel, which is even shorter now. Or at least the wait time there will be shorter because cars are constantly moving through there. When it was the way it was before, if you had people paying at the pay stations, it's going to black everybody up. And even if they come in and you're going around on the member lanes, we got to wait for the.
Even after we paid, we were waiting. So, I mean, I don't, you've answered my
Okay.
question.
I'd like you to ask that question of these gentlemen. They know a lot more about the operations than I do.
One more question of you. We haven't talked about it, but this escape lane. Why the escape lane? I understand the word escape, but talk to me a little bit about that, please.
Again, I think they can answer better, but it's my understanding if a truck comes through that maybe can get through the pay stations but can't fit in the tunnel, or there's something on the car that needs to be removed, they have a way to get out. You're not trapped between the pay station and the tunnel
The escape
itself.
route is after the tunnel.
And that's current, that's existing.
No.
They have that escape lane right there
No,
now.
the escape lane is down below where your finger, you're in the wrong spot. Go down.
You're talking about
Any-
down?
any-
That's
yeah,
the escape lane that they're
yeah,
proposing. to
Mr.
put
Chairman,
in.
anybody that's going to address the board's going to need to come up and identify themselves on the microphone so it's clear who's speaking and to what issue.
Okay.
Again, that's to get cars off the site quicker. If you're talking about down here, they were going to open up one of those vacuum stations. Currently, that's a vacuum station now. So instead of having to go around the building and then get out again, people can go straight out of the tunnel. And if they're not going to go to the vacuum, they can exit directly on Old Canoe Creek Road.
So you all aren't, well, I guess I need to wait for the guys that do the work to ask my questions, because it seems like they're the ones
I
that
think
have
so.
it.
I mean, engineering-wise, I think it's a solid design, but they can explain the operations much better, which seems to be your concerns.
Any more questions from the board for this gentleman? Thank you, sir.
No, Megan Marshall, I do have a
Oh,
question for
sorry.
staff. Sorry, no, for staff. Excuse me. Do you know the number of required parking spaces this property is supposed to have by code?
I do not off the top of my head, no.
In your experience, does this site plan exceed the number of required parking spaces for this parcel? Or
It
a
would have-
parcel for this use, excuse me?
As the approved site plan is in place, it does at least meet standards for parking. One recommendation from staff is a potential continuance of this case so that the applicant may be able to provide us an impact analysis to determine whether or not the new area for the proposed structures would be able to accommodate the traffic that would be coming in.
Okay. Has the applicant described or gone over with staff a different way to stack these vehicles? Because it seems like there's a different solution. This is a bad site plan, in my opinion.
At this time, there has been no discussion
Okay.
about a different type of stacking
Thank you.
method.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, it's a point well put up by Ms. Marshall. It's a narrow issue here tonight before the board with regard to the variance of 14 feet from the front setback. That's the only issue presented tonight. I know there's other ancillary topics that, and questions that are raised, but because it's so narrow, then that's what the board has in front of it tonight.
Thank you, Jack.
Sir. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, moving along to the next speaker. I presume is the gentleman waiting patiently. Can you fill out a yellow card?
I have not.
Would you
Does
please
not
do
need to.
that?
He said he didn't.
You just, sir, you just have to state your name and your relationship
Oh, I
to the
thought-
applicant,
I thought you
please.
needed the yellow card. Okay,
My
you-
name is Jeff Burr. I'm a regional manager for Mr. Car Wash. I've been washing cars in this manner for 14-plus years, so I'm coming to speak on the behalf of the car wash. I'm going to use these plans. So the old one, which is the main concern, when we come into a site to purchase, we're looking at throughput and only throughput. So what we do when we purchase a site is we have to have a way to enhance washing cars. Since we've taken it over, I know that it doesn't appear that the business is all that great. However, we're washing over 4,000 cars more per month than the previous regime. And that's simply because we moved these pay stations right here and we're using our tablets. This proposal right here is a entirely new set of kiosks, which our ticket time per vehicle on the 2 members only lane is 2 seconds. You pull up, if you've got the sticker, you're out. If you don't have a sticker and you're a retail customer, you're looking at maybe 30 seconds per transaction because we have attendants down there. The other thing that we're looking at is we can process payment at any single kiosk. So if we have one that starts to back up, we can do it. The main reason we're talking about the bottlenecks is based off of this right here, where you look at this inside lane, and the previous owners, we did some tests. They were about 2 to 2 minutes and 30 seconds per transaction. Plus, when you're pulling a car in from right here to here, you're creating a bottleneck based on the customer being able to hit that angle of a turn. With the other proposal coming from this direction, you're looking at plenty of stacking space per car. We have increased the chain speed, so the previous regime was about 135 cars per hour is what the chain is set at. We're currently at 165, teetering on the 170, but what we pride ourselves in is pure throughput. We'll probably be at about 180 cars per hour. So this exit lane is currently sitting there. This is purely a bailout lane. If somebody pulls up to the kiosk, they have, believe it or not, people pull in with a dually truck or some equipment in the bed of their truck that can't go through the car wash, maybe a damage to the vehicle. So when they pull in, we identify that and we have a chance to just quickly get them out of the way, maybe help them unload some things out of the bed of their truck, and then they can end up going through. And then on the new one, this right here was designed to get cars out to that old Canoe Creek Road as fast as possible and have that avenue to go out.
Any additional questions from the board?
Jack,
Could I just reiterate one point he made? That they're using the tablets at the location where the pay station is now. They're not really using the pay stations. They're out there.
To use
taking
the
orders.
microphone, sir. Microphone. You have to speak into the microphone so we have you on the record.
he mentioned, and he can continue on, but he said that they're not really using the pay stations during peak times. They've got people out there with tablets taking orders back where these pay stations are now. So operationally, they're kind of working in this format already. But it would be ideal to have the pay stations there and have the cover for the attendants to be protected from the sun, so that they don't have to just stand out there in the lanes. But they're operating very similar to this proposed layout.
But if your employees are walking around with tablets, the purpose of the canopy is moot, because they're constantly moving through your stacked lanes, right?
So currently, we're using tablets because we had to remove the original kiosks that were there for point of sale. We'd use a totally different system because we can tweak it to however we want it, make it faster. So actually, if we put the kiosks in this area, you would have the members only lane, which wouldn't need an attendant. So it's a much quicker transaction. Like I said, our whole thing is to remove bottlenecks, to stop stacking, and to just have throughput. That's how we do business.
Now, just to clarify, have you already moved those pay stations to the location on the overhead?
No, ma'am. We took out.
That's what you're requesting?
Correct.
That's part of the request?
Correct. This right here is the initial pay stations. We've actually removed them. So what we have is attendants with tablets that are connected through Wi-Fi, and they're going through the transaction. Something else to add is that we took this site from a full-service car wash site to an express site. So that limits the amount of packages that somebody can get. So it's going to be a faster transaction because they're only getting an exterior car wash.
Anyone else? Staff, one more time, would you again clarify or again state the reason for the rejection or the not allowed from you?
Absolutely. So staff's concern is of the potential stacking issue, which is in conflict with N4 of the transportation element of the comprehensive plan, which states that the access shall be designed to facilitate the movement of vehicles off the highway to prevent the queuing of vehicles on the traveled path. In particular, this appears not to satisfy criteria F of the 6 criteria that the board is intended to vote upon, which is what the concern of the staff is surrounding.
Thank you.
And if I understood you correctly, they have not done an impact to determine how this new system will affect Neptune Road.
There was no impact analysis that was submitted with this application. No.
Okay, thank you.
We have only submitted for the variance. We were told we had to go through the variance process first before we could even submit for a site plan, because the request tonight is actually for the setback variance for the canopy. The pay stations would be addressed more at the site plan review, but I believe tonight it's for the encroachment for the accessory structure, even though it is tied to where the location of the pay stations will be.
The pay stations are called out as a part of the request with the canopy. I think that's why a lot of us are talking about it. It is called out on the variance request.
Okay. Well, they're linked together with the canopy.
Yeah.
But it's just, we haven't gone through a full site plan review process yet. We hadn't got any formal comments from engineering or anything like that. It has only gone through the variance process so far.
Anyone else? Anything else from public comment? Any other speakers? Public comment section is closed.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just for review for the board, I know the board's well aware that the board will consider the land development code factors that are enumerated in your packet pursuant to 3.4.2 D, like dog 1, items A through F, and the responses to the items for consideration are found in your packet as well from the applicant. But those 6 factors need to be considered in whichever motion you forward. Thank you very much.
Chairman, can I request that you reopen the public hearing? I just have a question for staff. I apologize.
Of course. Reopen.
Do you know of any other variances of this type within this area, or that the city has allowed?
I'm sorry, Ms. Marshall, that's not something that by the Land Development Code, the board shall consider when regarding this independent application and other issues from surrounding zoning areas. Specifically,
There's
it's
no other like variances?
specifically not to be considered by the Land Development Code. I understand the relevance.
No, it's interesting. That's
But
fine.
yes, correct,
Thank
exactly.
you.
So
Sorry.
from a legal standpoint, that can't be considered, exactly.
Okay. Public comment again, reclose.
Thanks for your understanding.
Board member discussion. Any thoughts anyone would like to share? Any reservations, pros or cons?
Chairman, I think I trust the city to take appropriate action after this regarding the impact for the stacking for the pay stations. My issue is with the structure itself. And you've got a neighborhood business right next door, a lot lower density. They don't have structures in their front yard, basically. And this is their front yard. This is the smallest portion of this parcel. It's not the side. I know that comment was made, but this is the front. We need to be consistent throughout the city. When we're driving, we don't see structures so close to the roadways. That's what we're here for, to keep with the comprehensive plan. So I do agree with staff's analysis on that. So I
Anyone
wouldn't
else?
be opposed to allowing staff work out a pay station issue, but I have a hard time with the canopy. That's just my comments. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
Moreover, my comment would be you have workflow optimization with the consistency throughout the city. And I think finding the ability to maintain both of those at the same time is not present at the moment. So those are my thoughts from looking at the current codes, current variants that would be allocated for this request, and the consistency that'd be provided to the residential areas.
I have a hypothetical question, and the lawyer may shoot me down on this.
Mr. Chairman.
If we so choose, because of the fact that the site plan and all those things weren't submitted or haven't been submitted yet, and maybe there's other things that need to be clarified or cleared up or changed even here, tweaked a little bit, can we just put this on some kind of table it, hold it, and
Understood, good question. The board certainly can entertain a request by the applicant for a postponement of a decision while the applicant works with the city on an enhancement of the presentation here tonight. But the applicant has a right to have a decision from the board if the applicant wishes to go forward here this evening. So, again, all I could focus on for the board would be the consideration of those 6 factors. Read through each one of them in applying the facts as you've had them presented to you. And, but if the applicant wishes to ask for more time to work with the city to enhance the presentation at a future hearing, they certainly can request that, and then if that were requested, the board would certainly be able to entertain that.
staff have any input on that?
The one
Proposition?
comment I would like to make is for the Board of Adjustment process versus the site plan, we cannot start to review a site plan until the Board of Adjustment process has been determined. As such, it would have to still be at the Board of Adjustment level where we do some sort of impact analysis if that's so determined at this meeting.
Is there no way around that? Because I'd like to submit the site plan and get comments from engineering and not just from planning and zoning.
What, if I may, from a legal standpoint, I defer to staff and the applicant in terms of the technical aspects of the application. But the issues themselves before this board are fairly broad sweeping in terms of, if you see the language in your code, you know, first of all, an identification of special conditions and circumstances on the property. Do they exist? And if so, do those exist which result other than from actions of the applicant? Those are your first 2 guideposts to go through, and then move through the other questions. So if the matter is going to go forward, instead of working a fix or a resolution, you've got to take what's being presented as an application, and that guides you into the issues you face in making the decision. You are the ultimate decision makers on this issue. And I would point out that in the event that a variance request is unsuccessful, there is a period of time in which an applicant would have to wait before they could resubmit for any kind of consideration. And it's, I believe, 18 months or 2-year period by land development code. It's certainly a substantial period of time in the eyes of most applicants. So it's important from the applicant's perspective, certainly, once they bring it to the board for a final decision, in terms of the time that's at stake in the event that it's unsuccessful.
Would it be possible to add any conditions that staff review a stacking analysis and engineering review as part of the site plan process, that you could approve the variance with the condition that staff still approves the final engineering and design and traffic analysis of the layout?
The board can make findings that are either in favor with conditions, or recommend denial, or decide for denial, based on the 6 criteria. But you must find that the 6 criteria have been met in the affirmative, even if you're imposing conditions. If those conditions are not met, then that creates a violation, a zoning violation. But even with the conditions, the 6 criteria need to be met. Yes, sir.
Any other board member comment?
No.
Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the motion that this be denied because it does not meet the 6 criteria
request a
pursuant to
continuance?
section.
So, sir, the board is acting now. Board, the public hearing had been closed. The board is moving forward.
I didn't get a chance to ask for a continuance.
You, sir, the public meeting has been closed, and the board is now deliberating and moving forward. Mr. Jandro?
Again, to repeat myself, I make the motion that we deny this request at this time because the 6 criteria pursuant to sections 3, 4, 2, D1, A through F of the Land Development Code have not been met in their entirety.
Okay. At this time, now that Mr. Jandro's made his motion, you've heard the utterance from the applicant. If the chairman wishes to reopen, to entertain a
We
request
need
for
a second
continuance.
first, don't we? So,
That would be for purposes of discussion with the motion. I'm only giving the board the option, if they wish, to hear from the applicant before the motion is further acted upon, and then for the board to act as the board wishes to act, in any direction.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second for the motion to deny?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now let's discuss the possibility of doing whatever. Or thumbs up, thumbs down on the motion.
Is it?
Well, what I was saying, if I could, Mr. Chairman, is now that the motion has been seconded and it's ripe for discussion, the board can, if the board wishes to, can open the public hearing for the applicant to now make his or her request that the board abstain from moving forward until they've had a chance to augment their application. The board does not have to accept that, but you can give them the opportunity to make that motion if you wish. You don't have to.
Okay, is there any discussion from the board? My question then from the chair is, do you guys even want to hear the extenuating circumstances which the gentleman may put forth? Or go ahead and do thumbs up, thumbs down on the motion? You ready to act on the motion?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
sir.
wouldn't mind hearing what they have to say. If it's,
I wouldn't either, but that's 2 of us.
Dialogue is okay.
Okay,
Yeah, as the applicant, I'd like to ask for a
reopen the public
continuance.
section, you may go.
I'd like to ask for a continuance to bring back some responses to some of the discussion that's been held tonight, to do a queuing analysis and potentially show some other sites and how fast they move through the pay stations that have been upgraded in a similar manner, to try to better our application and our request for the variance.
Staff? Any comment? Rebuttal, pro, con, anything?
For staff to move forward with a different type of recommendation, we would require an analysis of some sort that would address the stacking issue.
But that's if we approve the site plan that's been presented today, correct?
It would be for the variance in question, for the 14-foot variance. And in this case, if I'm not mistaken, City Attorney, that this would be specifically targeting the approval with conditions aspect of the process.
Yeah, I think the prudent direction to take is one of two, either to move forward with the pending motion, which has been seconded, and to take a vote on that, or if the board wishes to hear an enhancement of the presentation on the focus of the issue, which is the setback variance. That's the issue before this board, 14 feet.
Right.
And if there is some additional or alternative methodology upon which the applicant feels that the 6 criteria will be met to the board's satisfaction, they wish to bring that forward to you, and the board is open to receiving that, then the board could take action to allow that to continue and to allow this motion, which has been seconded, that you could vote to consider a continuance and a further presentation before taking final action. In the event that a denial is finalized here tonight, the Land Development Code requires 12 months before a request can be resubmitted. That can be waived, of course, by 3 affirmative votes of the Board of Adjustment when such action is deemed necessary to prevent injustice or facilitate proper development of the city, but it's still a procedural requirement. So it's up to the board. It's the pleasure of the board. And you do have a motion and a second, so this is the time for discussion in all directions.
Any further discussion for the continuance, or do you want to call the vote? Hearing nothing, the chair acting on its own behest, I'm going to call the vote.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to disallow or not allow their variance request for the setback of 14 feet. Would all the board members who are in favor of that motion disallowing that, please signify by saying aye.
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 I'll hear 2 opposed.
And just for clarification, that the nays,
Hold on. Hold
the,
on, hold on, Madam Clerk. The motion was for a denial based on a failure to meet the criteria, the 6 criteria. That motion was seconded. The vote was called. A vote of ayes in favor of the motion to deny. Who voted in favor of the motion to deny? Who are the members? By show of hands. Mr. Gendreau, Mr. Hartwick, Ms. Marshall. So there were 3 votes in favor
4.
of the motion.
Yeah, fourth.
Yeah, there are 4 votes.
4 votes. Excuse me, Mr. Gilmer. There are 4 votes in favor. That means that the variance as presented has failed, has recommended denial. The order from the board is a 4-1 vote in favor of denial in support of Mr. Gendreau's motion. That's where we are.
Right.
So the application for variance is denied.
Anything else from
Okay.
anybody? Jess, you want to tell us about the next meeting?
yeah, and we'll be meeting, if there is a case to be reviewed, we will be meeting September 8th in the same location at 6:30 PM.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, board members.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
It was a
all.
bit of a sticky wicket. We couldn't have got through without you.
Yeah, not at all, not at all.
She said September 8th at 6:30.
Nothing further.
September 8th?
If I don't have
September
it,
8th at
Oh, did I?
6:30.
Hold on, I might have looked at that wrong.
Is that right?
That was correct. September 8th at 6:30.
It should be.
Yeah, it says that, well, that's what it says.
The second Wednesday is the 8th, I believe that's right, yep. Are we adjourned, Mr. Chairman?
Sorry?
Are we adjourned, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. Adjourned.
We're adjourned? Okay. All right, everyone. Jesse, thank you. Sorry. I wanted to make sure I
Boy, that
understood.
was a.